All right, how's everyone doing this evening?
Good, hope you are.
Doing pretty well. Too bad, not too bad.
Finally getting over this sickness.
Yeah, it seems to be going around a lot, or at least this week and last week. So, yeah, if you're not feeling well, please take care of yourself. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Before we dive into this week, the lecture, I want to go back a few minutes and say that I know that there was several individuals who IM'd or messaged me over the past several days or so. And I just saw those. For some reason, it didn't come through until I logged into Teams a few minutes ago. They never came through on my phone, so I have no idea why they didn't. I will take a look at and see why that didn't happen, but I will look at those. And what I want to do for tonight is we're going to go through the lecture. We're going to talk through the guided practices. We only have two of those for the evening. They're not too lengthy. They're sort of tedious, but not too lengthy. And after the guided practices, we'll talk through the in class activity a little bit. And then I want to take the rest of the evening and make sure that everyone's okay, and that if you have issues or questions with the performance assessments, that I can assist you with those. And that's not just the week 3 performance assessments. That is the previous weeks as well. All right, so we're going to look at this week configuring Ansible roles. Over the past several weeks, just to sort of recap, for the past 2 weeks, we have looked at running playbooks on a Windows machine, on a CentOS machine, and on an Ubuntu machine. And we have looked at process counts. We have installed databases. We've installed applications. We've configured those. This week, we're going to go a little deeper, or deeper into the operating systems. We are going to look at roles. We're also going to look at performing debugging and error handling at a very high level, but we are going to look at that. We're going to talk a little bit more around validations for playbooks, how we can troubleshoot those, and what a custom module actually is. So again, we're going to look at creating those custom modules, and we're going to use Python and Bash, or Bash shell scripting, to use those modules. So you'll see that this week we're going to build out two different stacks. One is going to be in Python, one is going to be in Bash, and they're going to create users, and they're going to assign passwords to those users. Any questions before we dive straight in? All right, so in the first guided practice that we're going to look at, we're going to start with Python modules. I do want to pause and ask the question just by show of hands or in the chat. How many of you have worked with Python or Shell before, or Bash before, or both? It looks like we've got a few coming in saying they have. All right, so with Python, and so if you think about Python, Python is one of those languages that we would call a scripting style language. Even though it is runnable, so it has a runtime environment that you can use, whether it's running a front end application or modifying backend processes. Python is very robust. It can be scripting or it can be a front-end language. It is that versatile, but it is considered at its core a scripting style language. One of the major caveats, and I'm using my hands, I apologize, to kind of create a sphere. One of the big caveats to Python, just like in YAML, it is TypeScript strict. What I mean by that is if you have a space out of place, or a tab out of place, or a comma too far over, it will absolutely not run. And that will, quite honestly, drive you crazy. So if you're using the IDE like we're going to be using in just a little while, Visual Studio Code, it makes it a little easier because you can pull in the Python modules and it makes it a little easier to understand and work with. So we're going to use Python today to check for the existence of two users. So then we're going to write a playbook to run that module. We're going to start by going into that playbook, into our playbook. Now we're going to go a step farther. We're going to look into our week 3 environment, and we're going to create a custom Python module. Now, it's kind of hard to read here, and we're going to recreate this, but I just wanted to talk through it just a few moments before we dive in. We're going to import our PWD, which is present working directory. That is a Python library that we can use. We're also going to import the Ansible module. Ansible has its own module that you can use in Python or written in Python. We'll then look at some arguments. We'll get the current user. We'll check the information for that user to see if it exists. If it does exist, then we will say user exists. If it doesn't, then we will prompt and say user does not exist. I want you to take a look at this particular script, and the reason for that is it has to be laid out in this order, in this way, spacing syntax included. I'll show you that as we dive a little deeper. We're also going to make modifications to a YAML file. It's going to be check user. That check user is going to look for two different users. The user that you log in with, mine is S. McLean, and we're going to look for a secondary user called does not exist. You'll notice we have two variables there, user OK and user KO. User OK would say that that user is in fact there, and the second one is KO, and it does not exist. So we should see an OK and a not OK. We'll check our syntax to ensure that it runs successfully. We'll look at it one last time to ensure that it does look appropriately, and then we'll run it. We'll also do another change. So instead of utilizing the same script to do a check for more than two users, for just two users, we're going to expand on that. And I'll show you what I mean when we get in there. But we're going to take that initial script that checks for does not exist and the one that checks for our user ID, and we're going to expand on that to look for 4 different user accounts. You'll also notice at the very bottom of this script, or the addition to the script, is a with underscore items. The with underscore items acts in YAML, acts like just like every other language. It's a looping mechanism in YAML or in a declarative statement. It will look for all of the users in the variables section, and we'll loop through those and run the check each time. So then we're going to create a few bash modules. Those bash modules are going to create and update the password for the users. So we'll have a add users shell script. That add users shell script is going to get a random generated number or randomly generated date. It's going to, and I'll talk about that in a second, a username, a password, a name, and then a group that you want to assign it. And it's going to pass that information into the user add binary. That user add binary or executable is what creates that user account on the OS or in the OS. The RAND or RAND variable at the top, what it's doing is grabbing the system date and time or the system date from the operating system, and it is truncating it or substringing it down to just the month and the day. So you'll notice in the echo statement, it says echo password rand, and then you've got a \n, that's just a carriage return or an enter key, and then password rand again. It pipes that through to password for that user and then sends that to a null bucket so you do not see any of the error or issues. Any standard output. And then it uses the to pipe or the to push command to send any error messages out to the log so you'll see them to the standard output. We're going to create a CSV file that we're going to iterate through. And then we'll create our bash add script in YAML. You'll notice that loop at the bottom does the same thing as with items, where it loops through a bash script or the script to run the bash commands. And after it's all successful, we'll be able to successfully log in with one of those user accounts. Once you log in with one of those user accounts, we will do the who am I to see who you are. We'll check the date and time, and then we will exit out. Any questions before we dive in?
No, not yet.
All right, so let me go ahead and share my CentOS machine. And we'll go ahead and dive right in. All right, so for our first guided practice, we're going to create that Python module. So I will go ahead and launch activities in VS Code. And so then we will set our environment up. That way it looks normal or natural for us. And we get into our correct state. If you have anything loaded in your edit pane in the middle, you can close that. You can close your host file if you would like. Some people choose not to. It's okay if you do. If you see the Ansible lint issue in the bottom right-hand corner. That's not something that we necessarily need to worry about. We're not using any linters for our Ansible source, so we can exit out of that and you would have no issues. Just clear that notification. All right, so before we dive in, let's set our environment properly. So I want to make sure that we are in the correct place to get started. So how would I do that? I'm going to do a PWD or present working directory to see where I'm located. I'm located in the home S. McLean playbooks directory. That's my home directory that I'm, or the base directory that I'm in. Not necessarily my home, but it is the base directory that I'm in. We want to see what's below there. So I'll do an ls, and I'm going to do a long listing. So I'll do a -l, and we see we have 5 different directories or folders underneath. We're going to navigate into the week 3 folder. So instead of going directly into it using the cd week 3, I'm going to use the absolute path and say cd to change directories, home, S. McLean, playbooks, week 3. And that is the full path to get to that directory structure or that folder. Now you'll notice that my directory or my folder changed. We can do a present working directory again to see where we are, and then I'm going to clear my screen. Let's go ahead and take a look at Python to see if it's installed. So we can say Python 3 -- version. Well, before we do that, let's ensure that Python is in fact installed on the system. We could hit enter here and see if it's actually there. It would tell us if it's installed, or we can say which Python. If Python's not there, that means it's not linked using Python or using the alias. We can say Python 3 because we know there's version 2 and 3. Well, we do have a version 3. Is there a version 2? There's no version 2. So we're going to use version 3. We know it's there. So let me clear this screen again, and I'll say Python 3 -- version. And that will tell us the currently running version that we have in our system, 3.12.1. Now, next, we want to create a library folder. We can do that one of 2 different ways. We can say, under our week 3 folder, we can say make dir library, and that will create a folder underneath the week 3 structure. Or if you want to use pointing and clicking, the graphical interface, you can go up here to week 3, right click, and say new folder. Either way works. So we're going to say mkdir library. So if I expand that, we now have a library directory or folder. Under the library folder, we need to create a file called check_user.py or Python. So I'm going to say touch check user.py. Now, why am I saying touch? I'm not, and this is just a different way to create this file. What touch does, if you've done nothing else with that file, or the file does not exist, it creates a file header with just 0 bytes on it. There's nothing in the file. That's a different way of creating a file than going over here to the tree and adding a new file. Just a different way to do it. If I were to hit enter, you'll see now we have that file. Now I put it in the base directory. I actually need to move that. It should actually be one level down. So I'm going to move that into my libraries folder. So you'll notice on the left-hand side, it kind of moved. So it's now in the library folder and it's completely empty. I can click on it and there's nothing in there. We can then start to build our environment. Python, I'm going to save that. Say import pwd. And then from Ansible dot modules dot basic. You'll notice as I'm typing that out, it's kind of free formatting or auto completing what I'm doing there, and I'll come back from Ansible. I typed in AN, and it gives me an intelligent listing of what is available. Once I see the one I want, and I can use the arrow key to go through it, I just hit tab, and it will auto complete that for me. The next one is modules. I'll do MO. And so we want module utils, tab again, and then basic. So B, that's the only one in the list, and tab. And then I'll do space, import, Ansible. And again, I can find the one I want. I want Ansible module, and I'll hit tab. It makes it a little easier when working in an IDE because you have these tools at your disposal, kind of like I mentioned last week.
Excuse me, sir.
Yep.
I'm sorry to disturb you, but I was trying to open my code file to do it like that. I've been using Nano, um, but that seems to be easier. I don't see any of my playbooks when I try to open it up my directory.
All right. Let's give me a sec. I will log into yours if you don't mind. So if you're at this point, go ahead and hit the save button. So go to file and save so that it doesn't go anywhere. It kind of stays around. Me, I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper on yours. Give me 1 second. All right, so they are there. They're just under playbooks. All right, so I also noticed while I'm looking at yours that your playbooks are owned by Root. All right, so you should be good now.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so we left off with Ansible module. Now we need to say def main, and def is the main definition for this file. We're going to say module equals Ansible module. We're going to use the arguments. We're going to use an empty directory mapping to get our user. And that's going to be required equals true. All right, so that's our first Ansible, that's our first module. We're looking for our arguments for our users, and it is required. Now that we have that, we'll go down to line 12, and we'll hit enter and stay at the same level and say user is equal to the module with the parameters dot get user. And so we're using the user to use the module parameters get user. And that is the user that's being returned. We'll then use a try catch block. So a try catch block, just like most high level languages, allows us to make a change and then test whether that change was successful or not. If it was not successful, we're able to catch that particular change or issue and then redirect the output to do something else. What you're seeing here is I'm writing a try statement. We're wrapping all this in sort of like bumpers. If you bowl, if you're going to a bowling alley, it's the bumpers. You're trying something. If it doesn't work, we're going to give that return message. That return message is going to be except key error. So we're going to have a key error message. A key error is when it does not map properly to the key that you used. For our example is the password or the user. And we'll say success is equal to false. And the return message does not exist. So we've tried it. If it doesn't work, we say they don't exist. And then once we try that, we say if a success, because it is a Boolean value, Boolean meaning yes or no, if success, we're going to give it module, the previous example at the top, exit, and we're going to provide some JSON string or JSON information back with a return message. And if it's not successful, we're going to give it module.fail. So we've written our main module. We've written all of that, but now we need to run it. And if name equals main, run the main. And I'll bring this down just a little bit so you can see it all. We start off with our signature. We're importing our information, our libraries block. We then have our main method that we've called. We've created it to check to see if the user exists. But after it's created, we need to run it. The way you run it is you check in your main run if the calling module is main, which it will be for this, it's going to run that main function. Okay. So I'll go ahead and save that, or you can go up here and go File and Save. I do want to test this file before we do anything, because sometimes there are syntax issues that we miss. So let's do that. We can say Python 3 -m, and we're going to use the module compile. I'm going to say library check user Python. If it's successful, it's going to come back to the command line. If it's not successful, which I'll show you, I'll save that. We'll get a nice little error for us, but if you're using Nano or VI or Pico or Emacs or anything, it may not show you those error messages. So for here, we'll save that. I'll run it again, and you'll notice it says, whoa, you have an issue. go look at line number 12. Well, for us, we go look at 12 and there's something missing. It points out we have our first open parentheses, but we don't have a closing one. So we can close that and save it and then rerun it, and it's successful. Any questions on the Python script so far? All right, so let's go ahead and save that. And we're going to now create the YAML file that we're going to use. So I will close this because it was successful. Before I close it, I'm going to take a screenshot of it and put that in the Teams chat for everyone in case you have an issue or problem with it. You can go back to that and look at it.
Professor,
Yes, sir.
to generate that fault message, did you edit
I
it just to showcase that?
I did. I edited line
Okay.
number 12. I removed the parentheses at the end.
Square. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So now under week 3, where we're currently at, I'll go ahead and close or clear that screen. I'm going to do another touch check underscore user dot YAML. All right, so we'll minimize week 1 and 2. And now you'll see this little check user YAML right next to our library folder. Yes, sir, you had a question?
Yeah, as soon as I want to save, I just have something pop up on my screen. I can't find my stuff. Can you log in and check mine, please?
Yep. Give me 1 sec. And that's loading, so give me 1 second. All right, it should be there now. All right, you should be good to go. So under the
Thank you.
Yep, no worries. So under the check user.yaml, we're going to create our standard header just like we have in the past. This time we're going to use connection local. That's something we haven't seen before. So the connection local allows you to do exactly what it says. It connects to the local host. It's ensuring that you're using the same user password connection string that you would for that local account. We're going to say some variables. This is that user OK. And it's going to be your student ID and then user KO. For the examples that I showed earlier, they use the does not exist user. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use admin instead. The reason I'm doing that is the example is for a specific account structure. I'm doing this to show that it's not just those two user accounts that you can check for. You can check for others as well. So we're going to say admin. We're going to give it some tasks. So name is going to be check if user, and we haven't done this up to this point. The two curly braces to the left and the two curly braces to the right allow us to use a substitution variable in our task name. That's something we haven't done up to this point. So we're going to check user. The user we're going to check for is going to be user OK. And then we're going to do the same thing for the second user. I just copied all that. You can type it out again if you'd like, or if you need to. So we're just checking for both of those. All right, so let's give this a syntax check try. So under week 3, we'll say Ansible playbook, check user, syntax check. You should see a successful check. Once you get that successful check, let's go ahead and run our playbook.
Excuse
Do you
me.
mind looking at mine real quick?
I saw 2 users. Let me look at both of them. Francis, I'll do yours first, and then Lorena, I'll do yours next.
Because I'm getting an error with the syntax, but I'm not sure where the error is.
Is Visio code takes tabs, or do I
Yeah.
have to press a space bar?
You can do either one. It does take tabs.
All right, cool. Thanks.
So I'm logging into first one, error syntax, check user. What I would check for yours is you see this file right here that I have highlighted?
Yes.
Make sure it is one level higher. It needs to be in the week 3 folder instead of the library folder.
Okay.
Give that a try. If that doesn't work, we'll take a look again. And then Lorena. You said you had a question, correct? So there were two individuals. I just fixed the first one. Who was the second one?
I'm not sure, but mine's getting an interesting syntax error. Oh, wait a minute. I think I might have just figured it out. 1 second.
Okay. We'll continue on. If you run into an issue again, if anyone does, just let me know. We'll pause.
I have an issue too with my syntax.
Right, so I'll go ahead and hit enter on mine because I have the password in there. And then Justin, I'll look at yours. All right, so you're using Nano.
Close connection.
I'm looking. Give me 1 sec. So vars does not exist. Take a look at that line right there that I have highlighted.
Oh, okay. There's no space right there.
Yep, that's the first thing I would look at. And the second one, I would take a look at. Look at line 26.
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't know how I didn't see that. My my bad.
Nope, you're fine.
So that should.
If you got a second, Professor, if you could look at mine.
Yep, that will. I'm going to go ahead and take a screenshot of this as well, and then I'll paste that in chat for others, and then I will take a screenshot of this as well.
Thank you, by the way. Thank you.
Yep, no worries. Yeah, so what you should see is the the first one would say okay, because it says the name is found. The second one should say user so and so, either admin or does not exist, whatever you chose does not exist. look at your line 2. You're missing a character.
Am I?
Mm-hmm.
Line 2.
You can have one or many hosts.
Okay, I see.
Yep. Let's see, is there any more? Okay.
No, that appeared to be it. That was the one thing.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So let's say we were having an issue with this, and just as an example, I'll do the exact same thing that was done a second ago. Daniel, I see you. I'll take a look at in yours in just a second. Let's say I had an issue here, and I wanted to run this. It's going to blow up on me. It's going to say there's a massive issue. Well, it should say there's a massive issue. Run this again. Get it to blow up, or try to at least. There we go. So now we have an issue, and we need to debug that issue. The first thing you can do is look at that error message that comes back. Chances are it's going to tell you there's an issue, and it's going to give you a good indication of where that is. Not always the case. It's going to give you an about, not an approximate, but an about where you should be able to find it. As an example, this host file here, or the host line, says there's an issue. It doesn't know exactly where the issue is, but it knows it's pretty close. We can, in our Ansible playbook, we can run -v. That's for verbose, meaning it's going to give you a lot more information running or given back to the screen or the standard output than you would normally see. And you can add more than one of those together. The more you add, the more information or the more granular it gets. I wouldn't go any deeper than 3 or it's just going to get too difficult to read, but you can. Notice it automatically gave me a lot more information even before I had to put in my password. And then it gives you a little more. Granted, this is not a lot of information, but it at least gives you a little. So I'm going to change this back. And I'm going to make that same change that was made a little while ago by adding a plus sign in here. And I'll run this. It's going to blow up on me. And it's going to tell me there is a massive issue. Well, it says you need to go look at line 28 or 25 in your check Python or check_user.python file. Well, if I go look at line 25, I immediately can see that it's a little different. Another good indication is it says instead of ret or ret, did you mean set? Meaning I'm trying to set something. Well, I didn't mean for that. I meant for it to be a variable. So we would change that back and save it and run again. And it will successfully come back. So you can debug. That's a way of what we call debugging the system, debugging your application very quickly at the command line level. All right, so we've gotten our initial setup where we check for our user. We're going to take a backup of that. You can do that two ways. Since we're using an IDE or a visual graphical interface, we can do a right click, copy, and paste. And then we can change the name. Or you can copy check user, the check dot backup. This just keeps a backup of your previous version. Now we can't run that version because it's no longer available to us. And now we can make our modifications to our currently loaded environment. So we're going to make some changes. Instead of just using the users flag, we're going to add, variables. We're going to add a users section. So we're going to say your username, root. I'm going to keep admin in there. I'm going to do another one for the school. We can then change our task to say check user, and instead of user OK, we're going to say item. I'm going to switch to item at line number 11. And then we're going to use the with items users. A little bit smaller, but it does the exact same thing, and we're able to iterate over more lines. So I'm going to take a screenshot of that one. I'll clear my screen down here, my terminal window, see where we are. So I'll check my directory again. Daniel, I said I'd get to you, and then Andres, I'll look at yours next. So I'll leave this here so you can continue this, and I'll look at the other two. And Stephen, I'll get yours also. Daniel, look at line number 27. You got double equals, open double quote, single underscore, main single underscore. You actually need to have two underscores on both sides of main.
Got you. Thank you.
Give that a try. All right, Andres. Yours looks fine. Oh wait. So yours is saying here, new style module did not handle its own exit.
Yeah, I was thinking it was on the other one, but then I didn't see anything.
Oh module. Okay, you got an interesting one. So you're actually going to benefit from looking at it at a very low level.
You said maybe that last main isn't under the E? Oh no, line 28. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm looking.
I was just looking at
You're saying
what you put. Yeah, it says it's like according to this, it's under the E. The M is under the E on name.
it is
Under
for
like a couple
yeah.
spaces. I don't know. I'm just looking at the picture.
Yeah, if you're
Also, but
looking at
yours is just like
yeah,
that and it works fine.
if you're looking at the picture. So I was matching yours to mine. Not that mine is the de facto standard.
Whatever works.
Oh. I see it. Look at line 27, right after the double equals and the double quote.
Oh, the space.
Yep.
Wow.
I told you it was Python is a syntax hog. I want to use other terms there, but it's not nice when it comes to syntax.
See.
All right. All right, Stephen, let me take a look at yours. You can remove all those dash V's as well in the ask become pass piece.
Where at?
That was just me looking at it. So where you got Ansible dash playbook space dash VVV, you can remove those. All right, so Stephen, before you continue, you need to move your check_user.yaml file into your playbooks directory. Currently, it's in your library, and you can't use the library and the YAML file at the same time. So you can just do a move check user.yml space dot 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 period. Yep. And so that moves it up one directory. So now you can do cd space period and try running it now.
Laughing out loud. That is funny.
No,
Thank you.
it's normal. Don't think too much into it. Okay, so now that we've got ours created, or at least we've got this one created, I want to check it. So I want to do Ansible playbook, check user YAML again, syntax, check. And it worked. So now let's check those users again. And you may be curious, why didn't I run ask become pass this time? Truthfully, the first time, we didn't need it because the user that you're logged in as has access to the will group, and the will group in this environment in CentOS allows you to sudo and run commands without having to elevate your privileges. It automatically does that for you in some cases. In this case, it's doing it. All right, so I will go ahead and take a screenshot of these together. And I will pause here. Does anyone have any questions on this guided practice?
Yeah, I think I'm still having issues on mine from where you fixed it before.
Okay, let's take a look. Nope, that's accurate. Your first one, if you notice, I'm going to highlight it. Your first one was a success, and your second one was a failure, which was correct.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Nope, you're good. That's actually correct. Let's see. Daniel, you have a question?
Yeah, I got an error again.
Okay. Users is undefined. Take a look at line number 5. So your vars or your variables Then you're going to define the group of variables like your array. That's going to be a group of users. Does that make sense?
Yes. I'm
Okay.
missing that S.
Yep, you're missing the S.
Yeah.
Yep, so I'll come out of there so that it's not messing with your tab border. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yep.
Go ahead, Josh.
The command Python 3-m, the compile command, compile library, what exactly does it do?
It does an in-place compilation of that file. So it tries to do a runtime build of it. That's all. That's really all it's doing. And Python being a scripting language, technically you can't necessarily compile that. So it's really just trying to compile everything down to a small runnable binary. If it can compile it, then it knows that it's successful, that it can be run at runtime.
Okay. So it's just like another way to check it in a way, the syntax.
Yep, it's another way to do a debugging step.
Okay.
Andres, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm doing the editing, and we're supposed to actually edit the YAML file, not the backup.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, previously, when I've taught this, I will keep the check underscore user.yaml file the same, and I will rename or name another version of it to keep them in sync. This time, I decided to use the backup file and then, or clone the backup file and use the original. All right, so we've been going for a little while now. Does anyone have any questions before I give us a quick break? All right, Steven, what's up?
I don't want to hold anybody up. It involves mine. I'm having a little trouble, and I thought I fixed it. And I wasn't trying to bother you, but
No, you're good. So let's do this. It's 6:56, give or take. Let's take a 10-minute break or so. And when we get back, we'll finish out 3.4. And we will continue on with our in-class activity information. And then we'll enter into a time where if you have issues or questions, we can walk through those. And Stephen, just looking at yours, that looks accurate. You see where it says user does not exist, and then it says does not exist. That's actually accurate. Even though it gives you that fatal message, it's still accurate.
oh, so okay.
Yep, you're good.
All right, thanks.
So let's be back in around 7:07.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, is everyone back?
Yes, I didn't know if you want me to talk to you or if you want me to continue chatting.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, no, you actually, your
Yeah, I
thing
was gonna
is
go
to
look at
do
yours.
you do that with guided practice because I don't want to interfere with the flow of class, and you can get with me whenever you're done with that because I don't want to hold people up.
Okay, this one should be relatively short. So let's dive into this one, and then we'll talk about we'll circle back. Don't let me forget.
By the way, I just wanted you to know because I know you said I was quiet. I have been here the whole time.
I know.
I know that people I know teachers in the past have had issue with students like leaving their thing on and then walking away. And I don't want you to think that I'm one of those type of people.
Oh no, I wasn't. I was just you're usually a little more vocal. You're fine. I was just wanting to make sure that everything was okay. All right, so let's recap before we dive into our next guided practice. So we just finished up with week 3 guided practice number 3. So that guided practice walked us through working with Python and checking to see if users were in the local system. We're going to go a step farther this time, and instead of using Python, we're going to switch it up. We're going to use Bash. I'll be quite honest with you and candid. I prefer Bash over Python. You're probably not going to hear any high-level developer tell you that, but I will tell you that. I prefer Bash. If you put me in a command line, I'm far happier than I am using an IDE for Python. I can't explain it. It's just the way I'm wired. So you will notice as I'm in Bash, you may have to slow me down as I'm talking or moving. Just let me know and stop me. So let's start off with our libraries folder. So we're going to create a new file. I'm going to clear my screen just to get everything ready to be where we need to be. So I'm going to check where we're at. We're currently in the Playbooks Week 3 folder. I'm going to do a touch for the library folder. And under the library folder, I'm going to say add user.shell. So touch, again, is touching that file, adding a 0-byte header. So you'll notice it automatically on that left-hand side created that account, or that bash file. So we can open that file now. All right, so let's go ahead and start looking at our shell script. So the shell script we want to start with is we want to start with our header line. And the header line is pound exclamation point /bin/bash. I'm going to pause there and ask, does anyone know what that line is called? That line that I have highlighted. Does anyone know what that line is called?
Bash.
It has a specific name in Linux circles or in standard Linux environments.
Bin bash.
Close. So you're close. So it's called the shebang line or the hash bang line. It was the same in Python. You saw it a few minutes ago when we set that environment file. It's called the shebang or the hash bang line. I didn't mention that a few minutes ago because we weren't in shell yet, so I wanted to get both of them started before I mentioned it. It's just a character sequence that tells the operating system, for example, CentOS, which interpreter or which compiler it wants you to use. That's all that's doing. It always starts with exclamation point or pound exclamation point. The pound is a comment. The exclamation point is telling the interpreter or telling the shell that you're about to run what environment to source. Again, shebang. All right, so now that we've built that, let's start off with our variable structure. We're going to use random, and we're going to set a date. Date plus %m, %d, double quote, and the tick. What is the date? Actually, I missed one. What does the date function or executable actually do? So if you look here in our terminal window at the bottom, if I type in date, we get a nice little date. If I do date plus % or %m, %d, it formats it just a little differently. So I can format it again, %year, and do a uppercase Y. It gets a little dicey on the things you can do. If you do that, you really don't need that one. So it gets a little dicey on things you can do. You'll usually see it either with a lowercase w or the uppercase W if you want a long listing or a short listing. For us, I'll clear that. We want just that. And so what we're going to have is password followed by let's do this. Let's set random first. Date plus %m, %d. So if I echo random, I get my information, and I can say echo password random. And that will give you the concatenation or combination of those two pieces, the name or the variable and the string password. I do want you to keep in mind what that particular output gives us, because shortly you're going to be creating these, and it's going to be very important to remember that. So I want you to remember that particular string. We're also going to do the group for username is $1, name $2, and password is $3. Now, up to this point, what did those mean, right? What we're doing is in shell, we're setting a random, or we're setting a date with month and day as a random variable. We're also taking in 4 parameters from the command line. So I can just as easily, right after here, say echo 1, echo 2, echo 3, echo 4, and save that. And then I can do shell library. I can say test 1, test 2, test 3. And so it's just saying that is $1, $2, $3, and $4. It's just passing those parameters into our script so that we can use them. We're assigning those to something meaningful for us. You don't need number 9. That's just to show you what we're looking at. We're going to use the user add keyword. I'm going to then do group. We're going to set the name and the username. We're then going to take our password and give it that random character. But we have to do that twice. So we have to use the \n to give it a carriage return or a enter key. Password. And we're going to send that into PSWD, which will change the password for the given username. We're then going to send that out to what we call null buckets or dev null, so it's not shown. If there's any error messages, we do want to capture those. And that's what the 2 less than &1 is. It sends all error messages out to standard output. So again, it expects those 4 parameters or 4 arguments. It takes that information and builds the password file, or builds the password based on that and feeds that into the echo statement. And so next, we're going to add another, group first, so we can create our environment structure. All right, so we're going to add a group. So you would do that by using group add students. And so that adds another group at the end. If you were curious, I just did a cat of the group file to see that. So we've created our shell script. Now we need to create our CSV file. So I'll do touch and it's going to be users.csv. And so we'll say S button Stephanie Hutton password, and students. Most of these are the same, so I'm going to copy these. 4. We're going to say S best. That's Stan best. A Matthews is Aubrey Matthews. And J Jones is Jessica Jones. We'll save that as our CSV file. So now we have our CSV file. Under libraries, we have our add user shell script. So those are the pieces we need in order to build our YAML file. So let's go ahead and say touch add user dot YAML. So now we've got an add user.
Whoa, sir, what you doing? You fast.
I did that so you could see all the versions that I'm working with.
Oh, okay.
That way, if you were on if you were on a different set, it wouldn't pause you from what you were doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's the only reason I did that. So I could continue adding here in this window without you having to worry about where I was. I do appreciate that you called me out and said I was going fast. All right, so now you see the left-hand side is the add users in the library folder. The middle is the users.csv file that you can create at the week 3 folder. And then the one on the very right is the one that we're creating now, which is our YAML file. Localhost. Gonna do become true. Our tasks. Let's read the user information from a file and return a list. We're going to use the read CSV piece. It's going to be path. And it's going to be the exact same place. And we have to specify the field names. I'm going to draw your attention to this section here, the tasks 5 through 8. The reason I'm going to draw your attention to it is when you start working with your assessment this week, this is going to become extremely important on the field names. All right, and then we will do a register as users. Earlier, we did a loop or a with items section. When you're working with CSV files, you can use a register function to register the fields that you are wanting to use as user inputs. And those user inputs can then be items later on. So we have our first task. Our second task is going to be to execute the add user shell. We're going to use the command, much like we used the shell, local shell earlier. It's going to be bash library add user shell. And so we're going to then say item. Actually, before I do that, we're just going to say add user. I'll add those in a second. We're going to use a loop. And in that loop, it's going to be users.list. And so now we can say item dot username item dot name item dot password and item dot group. So by now you should have been able to create this add shell. So I'm going to take a screenshot of these two files and put those in chat for you. And close these out. Okay. So we have created a file that we want to reference. We've registered those entries as users. We're going to loop through using a task through that list. And that list is going to give us a username, a name, a password, and a group. Notice these items that I've highlighted correspond to the field names at line number 8. That's going to be important in your performance assessment. You have to match those completely. I'll take a screenshot of this as well, but I will pause here because I want you to go ahead and catch up.
Appreciate the pause.
Yeah, I should have paused a little while ago.
Is there a particular reason item.name has a set of single quotations versus the other areas in the command line?
There is. There is. So if you look at the broader script, you've got two double quotes as bookends. So you need, and the name value that you saw earlier in the CSV file, it said Stephanie space Hutto or Jessica space Jones. That space is, it converts it from a string to a string literal or a spacing structure. So you have to do the single quotes around it in order for it to work properly. Or else you'll have two different variables being passed in. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you for the explanation.
Yep.
Is that one of those things you learn from mistakes or just understanding the language and the way it writes?
One is by mistakes, and two is by understanding the language. So if you know that you are passing in 4 variables, which is what we're doing, and you know if you understand that a bash script or a shell script by its nature, a space is considered another, it's the delimiter for a next variable. So by adding that space in between the first and last name, it assumes that's 2 variables. So you want to concatenate those together with the single quotes. Another way to do that is instead of having the single quotes around it, you will see individuals put a secondary variable before that user add line that will add those two files together or those two variables together. And it will add double quotes around it or a single quotes around it to kind of push those together. And they'll use one variable as opposed to two in the user add section. In fact, if I were doing this as a production level environment, that's what I would do because I have more control around that variable and I have less issues of passing in a string that doesn't work into my user add function. But I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. All right, can everyone give me a quick thumbs up when you are ready to continue? All right, is everyone ready to continue? Okay, so we've created our users, or we've created our user account information. Now let's go ahead and do a syntax check on this. So we'll do add user, syntax check. And it should be successful. And then we will do an ask become pass. And if you remember a few minutes ago, I mentioned you need to remember the password that was shown earlier. We're going to go back through it again in just a moment, but it's going to be very important because of what we're doing now. We're creating these user accounts and we're taking the password, which is what you see here, p at ssw0rd, and we're appending the month and the day to it. So you can't necessarily log into these accounts with just p at ssw0rd. It has to be and 0211 in order for that to work properly. You can then check to make sure this is successful. So we'll take a screenshot of this. And I will clear my screen. And I'm going to do a tail of the etc passwd, which is our users file, and get our last 5 users. And that should be your name or your username, followed by the last several that we just created. And then go ahead and take a screenshot of that as well. All right, so we're almost finished with this guided practice. We've worked with Python, we've worked with CSVs, and we've worked with shell scripts. The last thing we want to do is to choose one of our users that we just created. I'm going to use J Jones, and I'm going to log in with that user. So you would just clear your screen and do SU. Actually, let's do this. Clear the screen, do a PWD, SU to switch user, and J Jones, enter. It's going to ask for the password of that user. So we're going to say capital P at SSW0RD 0211. Notice that my user or command prompt changed. I can now say, who am I? And I can do a date. This is the same thing I showed you earlier. And then I'll do a PWD again. And you'll notice we're still in the same directory we were just in, or the same folder. The only difference is we changed our user. Let's take a screenshot of all that. And there you have it. That is the guided practice for 3.3 and 3.4. We've walked through both of those, which was using custom libraries or modules, and then using custom bash modules.
I have a question. When I go to sign into one of my users and I put the password, it says SU authentication failure, even though I can see all my users.
Mm-hmm.
Do
Right.
you have it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking now. Yep. Chances are either that user doesn't have access to the will group, so you can do an ID on yours and see what you're assigned to, or you can do groups. Either one should work. Yep, you are a part of the will group.
So, so what would I do now?
So type in J Jones again.
And wheel? Or I
Oh,
mean,
no, I'm
group?
sorry. So do Sue. You want to do Sue first. The password was incorrect. Make sure you do. So for J Jones, your password is password1 with a capital P, and then I'm assuming 0211.
Hang on. Can I just try like a Matthew? Maybe I could try a different thing. Let me see here.
Yeah, hold on one second. Can you do a CAT space add user dot YAML? Oh, no, this, however you named your file.
Oh,
Should be add underscore user. Group. All right, so then do a cat space library / add underscore user dot sh. So you see your line number 3 where it says RAND.
yeah.
Instead of the single quotes around them, you need to have the tick. It's the shift tilde.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Professor, I'm trying to run it, and the task for execute add user .sh, it says skipping and then localhost in parentheses.
All right, I'll get to yours in just a second. Steven, I want to look at yours next. It's the shift, the one right next to the 1 key.
Oh.
Yep, that.
All right.
All right, and go ahead and save that. Now, you're not going to be able to use it, so let's go ahead and fix this real quick so that we can. So user del J Jones. Yeah, I know. Sudo su root. Oh, hold on.
Oh,
I got you.
my
I got you.
bad.
I got you. User delete J Jones. A Matthews. S Best. And S Hutton. Was that one not there? You did J Cousins.
Yeah.
I can spell. All right, now you should be able to run that again. So the users weren't there anymore, or were there, we had to remove them.
All right. So then if I do.
Yep, now you should be able to try again.
Here. You.
Here, try. Hold on one second. So do SUJ Jones. So that's what it is.
Okay. I forgot to add the 0 in between it. All right.
Notice the password there. And then you add the random characters behind it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I forgot to add the 0. The last time I just did it, I put 1 2 1 1.
Yep, no worries.
Thank you.
Steven, let me look at yours, and then Andres, I'll look at yours. give that a try.
Thank you. What'd you do?
So at line 14, I add in an S to users. And then at line 12, I put a space after the name and first curly brace.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I did not see that.
Andres.
Actually, I think I just figured it out.
Okay. All right, so that concludes our guided practices for the evening. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, I'm getting an error code on mine when you have time.
Okay.
Line in command not found in pass.
Look at line 11, the very last three characters.
Is it that space?
Yep. Try that one first, and then before you hit save, hold on.
All right.
That should be it.
All right, let me clear this out so it's not so messy.
Yeah, Professor, whenever you get a chance, for some reason I can't authenticate changing. It says authentication failure when I try to change the users.
Okay, give me 1 sec. Saying there's an issue at line number 10. Oh, they already exist. Is this the second time you're running this?
Yeah.
Yep.
But whenever I first did it, it did that as well. I never got that one output, which I find strange.
So Jones B is best. Matthews. Is it S Hutton? Use Hutton.
Yes.
All right, give that a try again. Let's save it. Give it a try again.
Let me do syntax check. Now that's become pass. Add user one. Yep. That's the strange part, because to me, that's the first time I've seen that output.
Hold on. That is weird. That's weird.
Yeah.
I would have so I scrolled up. I was expecting to see a success or a failed with success, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see one. That was the weird part.
Yeah. That's what was throwing me off on this one. When it said it already exists, I was like, I haven't created it yet, or at least I thought I hadn't.
It's weird.
I'll let you know if I run into anything when I'm trying to switch users. But yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep, no worries. All right, Andres, what is the password you're trying?
Well, I'm looking up here. It should be capital P and then at SSW0RD, and that's what I did for all of them.
And then add in 0211 at the end of that.
0211.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
When you type it in.
I tried that same method and it didn't work. Let me try now.
You're just adding the date to the end, correct?
Yep.
Yep. Based off that first file we configured, or the first one.
No spaces on there, just 02, the SU, or just password and then 0211.
Here, I'll type it in here so you can see it. There you go. There you go.
Thank you.
Yep. Steven, you said you were still having an issue?
Yeah, I'm getting the same error. When I tried the password with the 0211,
Mm-hmm.
that's not working. I don't know why.
I do.
Why?
So line number 3, you've
Uh-huh.
got a single quote right here. And it's very easy to do. I called it out, but I didn't call it out a lot or in detail. So you need to have the tick instead of the shift tilde like that instead.
Oh,
So
I
now that that is there, we've got to remove those. So let's do user DL S Hutton. Hutton A Matthews J Jones do user D. So I done. All right, they're gone.
that was freaking cool.
What, the for loop I did?
Yeah.
Yep. Actually, here. I'm gonna put that in chat so everybody can see it because that's
Yeah, that was really
you
cool.
can keep going. I know it by heart. I do this style of command all day, every day, and I'll explain it after I type it in. So what I did is I did for I in. So you can do a for loop just like you would in any major programming language. So you can say echo I, because I here is now your variable. Echo done. And it just echoes out the spaces, which is why I mentioned earlier that a name had to be inside of single quotes because it sees that as two inputs as opposed to one. So if I did that again to show you kind of what I just did for Stephen, I did S best, S Hutton, A Matthews. If I can type, sorry. And J Jones. Instead of echo, I did user del. So user delete. I'll go a step farther. We'll do a tail 5. We'll do 4. etc password. And then tail again at the end of that. And yeah, now I'm showing off. So it couldn't do the second one, but it run it again. I should go away. My fault. They won't go away.
You're not at root.
I'm
Use
not
the
in his root.
key.
Yep. Sorry. If you notice that quick hesitation I had in typing that password, it's because I do it all the time. I'm in root all the time. So, all right. So 4IN Hutton S Best A Matthews and J Jones. Do user delete. Done. In 4. And we'll just do that. What did I miss? $I. So that's the command I ran. And what that does is loops through that list and remove those users. And go back. And re-add those. It's a quick way to add and delete users. And I'll go ahead and tell you this particular script, if you're a Linux admin or a system administrator of some sort, you're probably going to write this style of script, whether it's a batch file or PS1 file or a shell script. You're going to write that in so many different languages over the years, it's not even going to be funny. Because every single business has the need to create and delete users. All right, any questions on what we covered today? All right. So if no one has any questions, then I will stop sharing for now. And I'll open it up the floor and say, does anyone have anything they wanted to go over from last week?
Yeah, I have a whenever you get a chance, I guess we can go in order. Like Amanda was about to talk. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll work with Amanda, then I'll look at yours, Stephen.
All right.
No, you're fine.
All right. So no, you're good. Is this the guided practice or the?
It's the guided practice. It was 2.6. For some reason, I couldn't get conditional VinW win to run. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're good.
I couldn't get the conditional YML to run.
Okay. You go
I'll
ahead.
let you have
No,
it.
no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
So there's the I don't even know what you call it. There's the cat of that, and I don't know if there's any spelling
Yeah.
errors,
We
but I
just
went over it like 15 million times, and for some reason, when I run the syntax check, it says it gives me like an error message, but it essentially says it's okay. And then when I go to ask become pass, it
Mhm.
just barely runs anything.
Yeah, run the syntax error, the syntax piece. So while she's doing that, if you don't have any issues or any questions, the only thing I want to mention is that you have your midterm this week as well. Don't let that sneak up on you. It's actually everything that we've done up to this point. And the reason I make that comment is just about, well, not just about every single one of the guided practices that we've done and performance assessments, you can almost take a look at those and get 99% through your performance or your midterm. All right, so if you don't have any issues or questions, you're more than welcome to head out if you'd like. You're more than welcome to hang around. I'm going to be around for a while if anyone has any issues or questions or anything, but you're more than welcome to work independently. All right. So Amanda, if you could you open the host file for me? What that's telling me, that warning message, is it can't find complex 4, which means it either doesn't exist or it's malformed in some way. So that's
Give me a moment.
you're good. It's under etc Ansible host.
I'm brain farting on the
No, you're fine.
on the commands. Give me a second.
You're good. So nano space /etc.
What was that?
I'm sorry, /etc. No, other way, falling forward. /Ansible /hosts with an S. There you go. All right, so yeah, it's missing complex 4. You're not going to be able to make a modification this way, so do a Control X to come out of it. And hit the up arrow one more time to have the same command, but put sudo in front of that.
Give me a second. I'm a deer in headlights right now.
You're good.
When you get put on the spot, you completely go brain like mentally foggy.
You're fine. And I would go all the way down to the bottom past the last Ansible command. Yep, one more. And then do bracket, open bracket, yep, complex 4, close bracket, enter. And then this is 192.168.1.2 and enter, and do 192.168.1.3. There you go.
You know, it's funny because I remember putting that in. I guess I didn't save it. So I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. And then it's ask, become, pass. Or become, yep, you can do either one.
Awesome. Thank
There you
you.
go.
I should be able to finish because, oh,
Well, so that one, when that happens, hit the up arrow. So that specifically, you'll need to go into your in your Ubuntu machine, and you can either do a actually, hold on, before you do anything else. You may have noticed I just powered your Ubuntu machine off.
I did not. I have the CentOS undocked, so I didn't see.
Okay. Give that a couple seconds to boot back up.
Was it like a what do you call it? Like a brain fart, man. I'm so tired. Where it interferes because it was on.
It had the file locked to do an update, apparently. All right, give it a try again. All right, give me one sec. Let that continue. Yep, that first one failed. Chances are it's trying to do an update to the Ubuntu system and it can't.
What does that imply? Was that something that would have been a user error, like something I didn't do, or is it like a compatibility thing? Because
No, what it's looking for is on the Ubuntu side, there is it's trying to do a update and it can't. So
is that a pod issue, or is it because when I
yeah,
started it up, I didn't properly do something? Okay, so if this isn't something that can be fixed, can I continue without any issues going forward?
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to. That'd be an issue. Failed caching. You can move forward. That's not going to cause any issues. You should be able to keep going. I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay, so this like continuing won't like mess anything up in the future with the rest of the
No,
guides.
it
Okay.
shouldn't, because what you were just doing there was just doing a list and a get. You weren't actually doing anything that would cause an issue.
Okay. Well, I apologize. This is late, but I'll have this
Nope, you're
submitted
good.
to you shortly, and I'll finish up.
Yep. And I'm upgrading the Ubuntu machine, so that should go away here shortly.
Okay, I'll wait until you're done, and I'll continue.
No, you can continue on. This won't hurt you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just notate that you mentioned that in the guide of practice when you submit it. That way I'll know to overlook it.
Roger that.
All right, Steven, you were having issues?
Yeah, excuse me. I'm having issues with my performance assessment. Um,
Okay.
when I try to install Apache, it's on the Windows 19 client. It's saying that Python isn't installed and giving me errors.
You don't have that loaded right now, do you?
I
You do.
just
Sorry. It's at the
yeah.
bottom. All right. I'm popping into it, so it may mess with your screen.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. Yep. I'll let you drive.
Okay.
Yep. I gotta say, I'm glad to see that the first thing you did was did a PWD.
Gotta know where I am. So it's true.
Hey, sir, can you please share the recording?
I haven't stopped the recording yet. But yeah, as soon as it's finished rendering, I'll record. I'll share it.
Yeah. So this is this is what I'm getting.
All right. Go ahead and um. Oh, you see where it says win underscore command colon? It's misinterpreted what it's showing. You see the line right above there? It's got dash name colon install. you need a space between the
Oh.
colon and install.
Oh. Oh, snap.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
Okay.